You know, for better or worse, hurt and heartache seem like such an egalitarian thing. It seems like it rules among the already poor and struggling, but loss and illness affect even the most proud and prestigious, even well-positioned community leaders like Jairus. Even the ones with respect and resources. Because it turns out that no amount of respect or accomplishment, meditation or volunteer hours can inoculate us, or the ones we love, from being truly human. Some ailments are visible, the ones that flush our cheeks and pale our skin, leave us with surgery scars, or sling around our arm, or walking cane, something that we won't leave the hospital again. And some diagnoses hide in plain sight. Chronic pain, anxiety, depression, HIV, AIDS, addiction, diabetes, cancer, rage, and hemorrhaging women whose names we do not know. Whether or not our dis-ease is diagnosed or given a name, whether or not our symptoms are obvious, when we are not well, in body and soul, it affects our whole being. We often sense that there's a limit to how much other people can deal or what they can do for us in that space. And if this goes on for any kind of prolonged expanse of time, this kind of pain and hurt can make us feel deeply alone, even when we're in a room full of people who love us. We feel like we've tried everything. Doctors, specialists, doom scrolling, comment sections, prayers, people changing our diets and intentions, our regimens. And maybe when those fell short too, we found ourselves in addiction. Addiction to substances or sex or stuff, to consumption, to social media, to work, to novelty, to anything that could temporarily soothe or at least mask that ache of uncertainty or rejection, disappointment, and fear. We isolate ourselves because we don't want to be a burden, or we feel untouchable, not in a good way. We hide away because when we have let our true selves be seen, we rehearse, and we fear it will happen again. We isolate ourselves because we don't want to admit how bad it really is. It scares us. We stay closed off because sometimes it's literally all we can do. Getting out of bed just isn't an option for some of us some days. And others isolate us because they're embarrassed that they don't know what to say, or it reminds them of their own pain, or they're afraid that they might be as fragile and as human as you are. And they'll have to see it. And so we lock up our feelings, we closet ourselves, we conceal the freckles that God gave us. We hide the whole truth of who we are because once it was the subject of schoolyard bullying, and it turns out that still hurts. We tell doctor versions of history and the Bible, where David and Jonathan were just really good friends. Whose love surpassed the love of women. And there are many other receipts I could give you that ultimately become woven into who Jesus is. But when we see the sky, and then that sky comes crashing down, and we get to the point where it seems like there's nothing left to prop us up and nothing left to lose, no pretense to maintain, when we no longer even bother to pretend that we got it all together, things are fine, but they're definitely not, we may fall to the ground before Jesus and plunge through danger and strain our arms to their limit, just to touch something that might set us free from our bursting desperation. Maybe then we can allow ourselves to be fully seen in the sorrow caused by love and loss. And just maybe, we might dare for the joy and delight of love to be seen in us as well. I think that's the thing I love so much about Fire Begins. It's watching that joy refuse to stay hidden any longer. But that's risky. It's possible that even these risks won't change anything. And even when we sort of convince ourselves to expect that, to caution ourselves, it still hurts when it happens. After the little girl was declared dead, Jesus asked to be taken to her, and the people laughed, blow it off. In the face of deep disconnection, the idea of wholeness and restoration seems laughable. In ancient Jewish society, both blood and the dead are considered ritually unclean. So anyone who touches them would also be contaminated too, cut off from the people and from God, at least for a time. So who would risk such a thing? Jesus knows the risk, knows the consequences, and chooses love anyway. Among a sea of people pushing in on every side of it, Jesus notices this woman who touches even his outer clothes. Like someone like, I can't feel this. Jesus notices. Jesus knows when something is off with us, and it sets something off in God's own self. Even with all barriers, God feels this power of a new life that's been lying asleep and trying to emerge. And Jesus stops everything to tend to it. This woman's body has been made well. But that is only part of the healing. Jesus called out and she stepped forward. She came in fear and trembling, fell down before him and told him the whole truth, the reality. And Jesus says, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease." Daughter. It has been so long since someone probably used such a word or such intimate relationship with her. And faith, is that what was fluttering around within her? She never said anything of faith, never declared Jesus as Savior, never expressed any allegiances or convictions or creeds. But Jesus speaks of God's conviction for her and her holiness. And it's the same with the little girl. While her family and community have been reaching out for help on her behalf, she is unable to move or speak. She cannot even reach out for touch. She cannot plead for anything. And yet, Jesus casts out the noise of weeping and mourning, of sorrow and separation. God softly kneels beside her bed, touches her small hand, and says with gentle firmness, "Little girl, get up." I wonder what little child within you God is inviting up and out. None of the positioning, pleading, bargaining, agreeing, rationalizing, none of that produces healing. No sense of if X, Y, Z, then things will be better. Not in the way we truly crave. Rather, it is Jesus who restores. It is who Jesus is that brings about restoration. The woman says, "If I but touch his clothes, I will be made well." She lives in a world of if-then transactional healing and wholeness. Does anybody else know a world like that? It's not a mark against her, it's the water she swims in, right? Jesus says, it's not even that. It's not that you finally won an unwinnable system. It's who I am that brings healing. It's not what you do that earns wholeness. It's who I am that reveals it, even in a broken world. I bring a new system, a new economy, where there is more than enough life and love for everything. While our habits and practices can help us recognize and lean into our divine wholeness, they don't produce it. The woman never uses the word faith for herself. She may never have called what she had faith or recognized it as such. She may have even been repulsed by the very idea after it seemed to have let her down so profoundly. But Jesus does. Jesus lifts out the part of ourselves that we thought were dead, or perhaps never even there. What's unique in God's life, kingdom, and victory is that this healing is not just for the privileged. We hear that in 2 Corinthians text too. This generosity is for you to be generous with others, and it is a kind that lasts. So in the ancient world, the ones who were healed were the ones who could afford it. Again, use your imaginations. The ones who could finance their travels to renowned physicians and temples full of holy healers, to centers that resemble sort of modern health spas that were near natural springs and had whole amphitheaters for charismatic speakers like we didn't invent this, you guys. And they too taught that the right set of beliefs, or the right way of thinking, the right practices, that's what would get you healing. So the ones that got healthcare were the ones who were already relatively healthy enough to make the journey to such places. In that system, healing is not a given, it is earned. Healing doesn't come to you, you have to make a way for healing. Perhaps our system is not so different so many years later. The woman that Jesus heals has no money left for doctors or treatments, and the daughter isn't well enough to make the journey to any healer. They point to the sort of top and bottom of the social hierarchy. Those who are just 12 years old and surrounded by family, and those who have spent the same amount of time isolated from others. They are both dangerously unclean, and neither expresses any explicit faith before they are healed. And this is who God heals. The high and the low, the overtly religious, and those who haven't been to church for years, if ever. The well-off, the comfortable middle class, and the poor. And the healing culminates in sharing food. Jesus tells those gathered to get the newly resurrected girl something to eat. It's a practical idea. She's been through some stuff. You need some sustenance after that. A donut would be great. She's probably famished, and food does wonders for her hungry body and soul. But Jesus also wants those around her to see that she's not a ghost. That this healing is not a trick, that this isn't smoke and mirrors that's going to fade as soon as they leave the room. Because how many times have we been sabotaged with fear that even when we get a glimpse of healing, that it's not real or won't last? And Jesus shows that this healing is not just a shallow or hollow temporary fix. It is complete wholeness, restored, and it will remain. Now that doesn't mean that the little girl is never going to get cold, or that woman is not going to get arthritis for the rest of her life. But they are eternally liberated in truth, that isolation, even within their own minds, will never again define them. The weight of our woes, as heavy as they get, is still no match for
God's love for us. They've experienced a hope so big, a relationship so restorative, a connection so powerful, and a love so profound that they cannot be intimidated, enslaved, closeted, or confined to anything less than God's promise for ultimate wholeness. And each time we eat and drink this sacred meal, we taste that promise again and again, and it nourishes us day by day. It declares that we are part of this body which has been healed, which has already gone to the grave and back, and set free. We are part of a divine body that in its brokenness is also life-giving, food for the weary, for a disconnected world. Its fragmentation is made whole in our sharing of it. Thanks be to God. Amen. We hold a moment of stillness and quiet that the word might linger in